just as you're coming in, just to let you know, we're just going to wait for a few more participants to join us this evening, and then we'll get started and go through retirement planning with you. All right, looks like the numbers have slowed down and most people that are attending have come in. Welcome everybody to Retirement Planning with Australian Catholic Super. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Relationship Manager based out of our Brisbane office. And joining me here this evening is Tom Rouse, who is a member of our financial planning team, also in the Brisbane office. Say hi, Tom.
Evening, Bill.
We were pulled up a little bit short before. We were complaining about the cold weather up here. So wherever you are, I hope it's a little bit warmer than Brisbane has been. Though if you're down south, I'm guessing that's not the case. A couple of things that we'd like to go through before we get started. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I work and live. I'd like to recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. And just for your information in coming in here this evening, please be aware that this is information only. It's not advice. We're not taking into consideration your personal circumstances. So in the event you want to take action on the back of the information we're providing you today, please do your research, access the product disclosure statement and target market determination documents that are available on our website. And of course, if it's appropriate, seek financial advice so that you can ensure that the decision that you make is in your best interests. Thank you so much for that. Let's get into the bones of our presentation this evening. We are here to talk about retirement and what that looks like and how you might go about it. Just to start off with, if you've been planning your retirement or you've just got in, you'll know that you'll have a bit of an idea of the sorts of things that you want to do. And what you decide you'd like to do in retirement is going to significantly impact how much money you need and how long it will last for. So we've just got a bit of an example of some of the options at our disposal, I suppose, in the here and now. And if you think about travel, and what type of travel you might be interested in, if that's overseas travel or just a local trip up to the coasts or something along those lines. Very different expenses depending upon on what sort of approach you like to take. Cruises, Tom, probably aren't necessarily something we're all jumping on board in recent times. I know they do still exist, but COVID has definitely made a dent in that sense. What sort of things your mother-in-law is wanting to do now that she's in the backyard, Tom?
Yeah, well, I actually just saw on the news tonight that they'd started up the cruising again, and someone was doing their 71st cruise, I think. That people do love it. So I guess when we talk to clients, Bill, it's always, especially around planning for retirement, we kind of want to get these goals. It's all about goals in terms of financial planning. Then we have to try and quantify, okay, as you've said, into a financial sense, okay, how do we meet these goals financially and what is the impact on their retirement? So generally speaking, when we see clients and they're planning for retirement, there's going to be two main phases. There's going to be the active phase of retirement, which is generally the first 10, 15 years, where they might be doing the extra travel, the cruising, etc. And then there's probably a more passive goals where you are spending more time with the family or gardening, and they have very different financial impacts. So definitely thinking about these is what we focus on.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I forgot to mention at the start that if you have any questions as we go through this presentation, just so that you can get the information that you need out of tonight's presentation, you'll notice at the top of your screen there's a Q&A button. If you click on there, if you send any questions that you might have through to us, we'll either answer them throughout the presentation or at the question and answer session at the end, we'll make sure that we get everybody's question answered. In the event that you do ask a question, we generally will follow up with your local regional manager or RM and have them give you a call. Make sure that you've got all of the information that you need and check in with, see if you need any further assistance as we progress through as well. Now, one of the greatest myths I think has been floating around for a number of years now, Tom. A lot of people think that you need $1 million to retire on. Whereas that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. I guess, look, whenever, again, we see clients for the first time, we see a variety of people that might have only been working for a few years and have $100,000 saved in their super, all the way to those clients that have worked very hard all their lives as well, and they've saved quite a bit. At the end of the day, how much you need in super will always come back to how much do you want? How much, again, do you want to live on? So if you have a comfortable lifestyle, a modest lifestyle, which we're going to talk about, that is going to be the key driver, or the first driver behind how much you need. And then the second driver, or the main driver behind what you need, is also the age at which you're going to retire. So we're going to talk about it, but people can retire from the age of 60 and access their super tax-free. But if you do that, obviously you're eating into your super savings earlier than expected. So you might have to plan to have a bit more super to make sure it lasts.
I'll be 48 next year and still waiting for my lotto win, Tom. So that's where I stand. I suppose how much super you have in the here and now is a great starting point. It's important that you stay on top of checking in with your super, just being engaged. So on the first instance, I guess making sure that those contributions that you're entitled to come into your account on a regular basis. Generally speaking, employers are very good, but there are certainly stories out there where some employers have not necessarily met their obligations. So just make sure that your contributions are coming in. Watching those contributions in, you can see the impact that they're having. And if you choose to, you could potentially add more to that super. And there are some opportunities that might present themselves in doing that as well. And it obviously assists with your retirement planning, having an idea of where you are now and where you're going to be in retirement, like Tom's mentioned, that can help you with your retirement plan. Now, we talked just briefly there, or Tom did, around a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. And we're actually referring to some research done by the Association of Superannuation Funds Australia, or ASFA for short. They've kind of done the research and tested what is considered a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. We've got 3 different lifestyle options in there. Starting on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see what's available for you if you receive the full age pension, and the dollar figures there for a single and couple. And then we move along to the modest lifestyle, and where we would all like to be and beyond is the ASFA comfortable lifestyle in retirement. So for a couple, that suggests you need $64,771 per annum. It's very generic, but Tom, I know for a fact, having done this presentation a few times, that doesn't require $1 million to support an income of that level for time in retirement.
Yeah, because I guess what we've got to take into consideration, Bill, is also the age pension, how that can help in retirement. So again, we're going to talk about that a bit later. Coming back to, well, do you have enough money to live and what's comfortable for you? A key part of any financial plan that you need to put together is really focusing on, well, what is comfortable for you? Some clients I see, they go, look, $65,000 as a couple, more than enough. I could probably manage on 55. Other clients, they go, well, hang on, we've been used to a lifestyle of around the $75,000, $80,000 a year mark. We kind of want to maintain that at least for the next 10, 15 years. So you might have to plan for a bit more. So this is where you need to look at that. The budget is going to be key going into retirement.
Yeah, perfect. I suppose the other element to this that isn't mentioned on this particular slide is that it's based on the fact that you own your own home, and of course that you are essentially debt-free, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Now, the beauty of ASFA's research is they've actually given us some practical examples of what those different lifestyles mean. So starting on the left-hand side this time, it kind of details some different examples that that make up a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. Now, being a type 1 diabetic, one of the things that I'm interested in throughout the rest of my life is having a decent level of private health cover. And I can do that on a comfortable lifestyle. But those of you that are interested in doing a little bit of travel, you'll notice that you can do annual holidays, you can do some overseas trips and those sorts of things. And another one is if you need to upgrade some elements of your home, whether it be a new bathroom or those sorts of things. With a little bit of planning, you can obviously do that with a level of comfort as well. But someone like Tom can help you kind of understand where you're on target for and what that looks like based on your own personal circumstances. Anyone that's interested in having a look at this document in a little bit more detail, if you were to look up the ASFA retirement standard on the website, you'll be able to locate that and have a little bit more research to get you started. Now, we've got a couple of questions that have come through. Don't worry, we will answer those as we go through. I know they'll be answered as we get through a couple of these other slides. One of the things that I know Tom does, and it's an important consideration, is look at your financial situation holistically. So yes, superannuation is going to form probably the backbone of your retirement planning, but there are other pieces to the puzzle that come into play, Tom.
Exactly, yes. So whenever, again, clients come to see us, Bill, a lot of clients think we just focus on super, because obviously we work for a super fund. But as a financial advisor, we take an holistic approach. So we do comprehensive advice looking at your whole situation. So whether you've got property outside of super or shares or even the family house that might come into the picture and downsizing the home and how that might help planning for your retirement. It's a perfect example. You've already mentioned my mother-in-law, Bill, and she gets quite a mention throughout the seminar. But her basic financial plan that we designed a few years ago now was she didn't have a lot of super in terms of dollar amount because she was a stay-at-home mum and did a bit of part-time work. Husband passed away, so she was widowed, and then she had this big family house, which was quite a big asset. Now, for her goals, it was all about having the lifestyle to make sure that she can enjoy retirement. So we designed the plan where we could downsize the family home. She moved up to Queensland, bought a smaller home, but could top up her super to have that liquid lifestyle and have the liquid money, to have the lifestyle that she wants to enjoy. So it's not for everybody, but these are the sorts of things that we discuss and we look at and the best way to do it whenever we design a plan.
So I guess now, Tom, we're going to look into how superannuation kind of fits into that part of the plan. And there are some tax benefits to kick things off when you're putting money into superannuation. So just walk us through some of the advantages, because I know you've got a good spiel in terms of what super's about.
Yes, yeah. Again, whenever I see a client for the first time, Bill, and we're talking about super, often super's got a lot of unknown things about it, because really you don't focus on it until you're about to retire. But the main thing to remember is all super is a tax vehicle. It's not an investment, okay? The reason why it's the best tax vehicle for retirement, again, how it's treated in terms of money going in. So going into super, and we're going to talk about it, salary sacrificing money into super, you only pay a flat tax of 15%. The interest that you earn on that money, again, is only taxed up to 15%. And then finally, once you're retired and you have money in an account-based pension, so that's where you're receiving an income stream, the interest that you earn on that money, there's no tax on the interest that you earn. So again, it's just focusing on, well, why is it a really good vehicle? It's all because of tax. The catch with super, there's always a catch, is access. When can we access the money? But I guess anybody 55 or 60 plus, that catch is either going in a few years or it's gone, and you can access super tax-free from the age of 60. So the downsides are going for people who are approaching retirement, and we can use super as the tax vehicle for funding it. So we had a question, Bill, from Cecilia, who said she's recently retired from full-time work, but she's going to do some occasional relief work. So she's not intending on accessing her super at this stage. Is there anything that she needs to do? Well, no, Cecilia, actually, it's a bit like a bank account, your super, okay? You can leave it there and just let it accumulate interest according to the investment performance. You don't have to touch it. Ultimately, the super fund will just leave it there until you decide what you want to do with it. But in saying that, there may be reasons why you want to access the super, even if you are going to have relief work and you're going to have income coming in. So that's where it might be good to actually have a chat with the financial planner to see, especially if you're 60 plus, how you can use the super system to your advantage to make sure that you're still meeting all your goals and objectives.
Yeah, excellent. We have another question come through in the chat facility, Tom, and I'll just answer that one. So transition to retirement, for those of you that aren't familiar, we're only going to go into it a little bit later on, but transition to retirement is essentially creating a pension account where you're accessing regular income, but rather than an account-based pension post-retirement, there are limitations in terms of how much money you can withdraw from that, up to 10%. But we will absolutely go into that in more detail a little bit later in the slides. So just hold on to that question, and if we don't give you all the information you need, we'll absolutely follow up. You mentioned salary sacrifice before, Tom, and this kind of demonstrates what the real advantages are to people, particularly on higher salaries.
Yes, so I guess the whole purpose of why people put money into super as a salary sacrifice is all around, again, tax. That just for example, if you earn over $45,000 a year, so you're in the tax bracket where you're paying 32.5% and plus 2% Medicare levy, so 34.5%. So for every $100 that you're earning above that threshold, well, you're getting $65.5 cash in hand. If you said to the employer, well, put that into my super fund as a salary sacrifice, well, instantly you save $85 in your super, because the super fund only has to pay 15% tax to the government. So the thing is that you can have $85 in your super fund or $65.5 cash in hand. Now that's a guaranteed difference. This isn't an if, a but a maybe. It's basically the tax difference. And if you look at that as a return on your money, it's actually around about a 30% return. Then once your money is in super, again, it's invested. The interest that you earn on that money is only taxed at 15%. You don't have to put it in any tax return. Just remember, though, that any money that you do put into super as a salary sacrifice, you can't just ask for it back. You have to meet what we call a condition of release or be able to access your super. So it is what we call preserved until that kind of preservation rule has been met.
And we're going to cover that off shortly as well, preservation rules. So in good news for everybody that's still working, the superannuation guarantee, as you'd be aware, is slowly going out to 12%. So at the moment, for the current financial year that finishes in about 30 days, your superannuation is paid at 10% of your gross income. From 1 July, it's going up to 10.5, and then it will continue to increase until it gets to 12% by 1 July 2025. So you can think all those young people that are starting the workforce now, they're going to be pretty lucky and probably in a much better situation than some of us older folk that started on the 3% and the 9%. But it's a good outcome for everybody. Now, just to give you a bit of an example of those savings that Tom highlighted in terms of the benefits of salary sacrifice, Tom, this example here assumes that somebody's earning $100,000 per annum and is salary sacrificing 5% into superannuation. Run us through the numbers, good sir.
Yes, so effectively it's just going back to that tax difference. So someone earning $100,000, they're on a 39% tax bracket. So effectively, for the $192 that they're salary sacrificing, then if they have that as take-home pay, well, because the government take 39% of it, they have take-home pay of $2,884 a fortnight. Whereas if they put that in as a salary sacrifice, because it reduces the taxable income, then their take-home pay only reduces by $127, okay, but they put $192 into their super fund. So effectively, that's the guaranteed return through the tax system. The catch, again, obviously, that, okay, well, some people might need their full take-home pay to live on, and they can't afford to reduce their take-home pay. So this is where we could look at strategies such as transition to retirement, if you have the ability to kind of maintain the income that we want, but take advantage of these tax savings and basically build up our wealth quicker going into retirement as we're working. So we're going to talk about that a bit as well, Bill. One thing I think we forgot to mention, these salary sacrifice contributions and plus the employer contributions, there is a limit on how much you can put into super, okay?
Funny you should mention that, Tom.
Slide. Sorry, yeah, I was ahead of you. So effectively, the limit is $27,500 per financial year now. So it has gone up from 25,000. So it's now 27.5. So this is the reason why the government put these limits on, because otherwise millionaires would be putting a lot of money into super and avoiding tax. So this is why they put these limits on, Bill.
And they used to be fair. So when we talk about that 27,500, there's essentially considering the concessional contribution. So anything that your employer contributes, whether that's your superannuation guarantee, or if you're lucky enough and your employer does an extra contribution, anything that you salary sacrifice to your account is considered a concessional contribution. And for those of you that have not been aware, you can actually do what's called a personal deductible contribution now, where you contribute to your account throughout a year or as a lump sum, and then you can claim a tax deduction directly from the fund at the end of that financial year, which changes the structure from a non-concessional contribution to concessional. Interestingly, as we get closer to retirement, if we are looking at opportunities to put money in, Tom, one of the things that people probably aren't aware of is that carry forward rule.
Yes, yeah. So this is basically a new rule that's come in. It's started in, it's the 18-19 financial year now, so it's been in a while. But what it is if you have what we call any unused concessional contributions, so say in the previous financial year you only put 20,000 in and you didn't put the full 27.5, then you can actually carry forward the unused cap from previous financial years, and you can go back to 18-19 financial year and add it to your cap for this year. Okay, so effectively you might have a larger concessional contribution cap than the standard cap each financial year. Now, the caveat is that this only applies if your total super balance is under $500,000. Okay, so that's all super that you have throughout any accounts that you have within super. The best way to find out is, well, two things. Number one, what is your total super balance? And number two, do I have any carry forward concessional contributions? Is to go to the MyGov website and the ATO, and there's actually a nice simple section in the superannuation section where you can see those figures. So it's a very nice, easy way to check what your personal concessional contribution limit could be. Because if you have any unused cap and you want to catch up, then there are ways that we can catch up and make sure that we're building wealth in the best way. We've also got a question, Bill, from Jay Sanders about salary sacrificing. Does the employer contribute additional super contributions? Mm-hmm. It depends on the employer. So
absolutely.
I think, Bill, you know the conditions for the Brisbane Catholic Education, for example.
Yeah, some state government employees do receive what's called employer matching contributions. If they contribute a little bit extra, then your employer will will also tip in an additional amount. It's just worthwhile touching base with your payroll, or if you've got access to your enterprise bargaining agreement, just check the details in there. And that will absolutely tell you. Another question was whether or not we send the slides out following the presentation. Sorry, we don't. But if you were to go onto YouTube and look up Australia Catholic Super, we do record these sessions and post them on the YouTube site. So if you actually like Tom's and my voice, please, by all means, go back on there and refresh your memory. But the information is also available through our website as well, in different sections. So please touch base with that as well. Now, other ways that you can contribute. So for those of you that are interested, if you want to, I'll start with a spousal contribution. So if your spouse meets certain conditions and you contribute on their behalf, you may be entitled to a tax offset of up to $540 per year if you could contribute $3,000. So that might take advantage of that and build your partner's superannuation balance up as well. And consolidating. It's not really a contribution, but I suppose if you consider consolidation as combining two or more accounts into one and avoiding multiple fees for administration and potentially insurances as well, it can certainly save you money and put your superannuation balance in a better situation. Now, the downsizer rule is one of those changes, Tom, that's actually had some positive effects and some recent changes.
Yeah. So the downsizer rule, again, it's a relatively new contribution that came in a few years ago. It was targeted at people who were downsizing their home and had extra money left over that they could top up their super. The good thing with the downsizer contribution is that it's a totally separate cap to all these other caps that we're talking about. So effectively, you can put up to $300,000 from the sale of your home into super to top it up. The catch at the moment is you've got to be over 65. You have to have lived in the property and it's got some capital gains tax exemption, and you've had to have owned the property for 10 years. So those are the three main criteria. And if you meet those criteria, then within 90 days, so the other caveat is you've got to do the contribution within 90 days of the sale of the property or settlement, you can make that contribution into your super. Now, also, if you've got more than 1.6 million, sorry, 1.7 million now in superannuation, this actually means you can still put this money into super because it's not subject to those limits as well. Nice problem to have, Bill, I know. But the downsizer contribution can be used in a number of ways. I'll give you an example. I actually saw a client today where they're wanting to downsize. They're moving into a retirement village, so they need to sell their home, but they're needing to put a deposit down. So we've developed a plan where they can actually withdraw a portion of their super to pay down the deposit. And then once they've sold their home to fund the rest of the purchase, the surplus cash that they have from the sale of the home, they can put back into super to top it up. So there are lots of different ways that you can use this downsizer rule. The government are opening up the downsizer rule. At the moment, it's for anybody over 65. From the 1st of July, that will drop to age 60. So anybody who's over 60 will be able to use this downsizer rule. There is a question as well, Bill, from Peter, which I probably might answer now, where he said, if you have an investment property, can you sell it and put the entire amount into your super? So effectively, Peter, it will depend upon the contribution rules and limits. Okay, so two things here. There is a limit of what we call non-concessional contributions that you can put into super. So this is money from the sale of assets that go into your bank account, okay, where you can put up to $110,000 a year or up to $330,000 in one go, as long as you're, well, currently under 67. Again, from the 1st of July, anybody under 75 will be able to use this, what we call bring forward rule, and put up to 330,000. So there is the ability or option to put money into super or large lump sums depending upon your age. The second thing is, though, as well, if you did live in that investment property for a period of time and you've owned it for more than 10 years and it's partly capital gains tax exempt because of living in it, then you potentially could also use the downsizer contribution rule from the proceeds of the sale of the property. So all I would say, Peter, is definitely get some advice on, if you are thinking about doing that and you're wanting to top up your super, the best way to do it, because there's lots of options available there.
And my apologies, I think my fat fingers jumped straight past this particular slide. So we're looking at the non-concessional contribution limits, and Tom's pretty much highlighted those. It's $110,000 per year currently, or bringing the bring forward rule, you can put it into 330. We are going to touch base on that a little bit later on as well, because that's one of the recent changes that has occurred that allows people to put money in for a little bit longer as well. Now, this is going to answer another question in terms of when can you access your superannuation? So it is a sliding scale currently. Ultimately, everybody on this presentation this afternoon will be able to access their superannuation in some way, shape or form from 60 years of age. So whether that's transition to retirement or you've reached full employment, everyone can do that from 60. But if you were born a little bit earlier, and we've got the dates of birth ranges showing there, you may be able to do that at either 58 or 59 years of age and generally retired. So generally retired, Tom, essentially means that you are agreeing never to return to work for more than 10 hours per week.
Yes, ultimately. That's right. Yeah. And look, generally speaking, Bill, it's very rare nowadays that we see people access super before the age of 60. The reason for that is if you do access it at 58 and 59, there can be tax consequences. And because generally you're quite close to 60, people try and hang off to 60. Doesn't mean that you can't. You just got to think carefully about accessing super before the age of 60 because of the tax consequences. So Barry's just said, if you were born before 1962, well, you're already 60, Barry, so effectively you can access your super tax-free as long as you meet what we call a condition of release. So a condition of release, as Bill's mentioned, is that after the age of 60, you leave an employment arrangement, even if you return to work, or you turn 65. So Coral's asked, can you draw down from your super account if you're over 65, and what's the amount? Well, Coral, effectively, you can draw what you want when you want. So it's a bit like a bank account. Just remember, though, that if you take any money out, that there are limits on how much you can get back in. So you've just got to be careful about that, okay? The other question that Coral had is regarding some estate planning. So I think I'll leave that till the estate planning section, Bill.
Yep, good idea.
Talk a bit about that. And then Cecilia's asked, is the maximum 10-hour per week averaged over the year? Yes, Cecilia. So we do speak to a lot of teachers. So often I get asked the question is, well, what happens if I do a block work, if I do a week's work and then I don't work for another few weeks? Does that count as substantially retired? So if it is basically 10 hours per week on average over the financial year is what you're expecting, that classifies you as substantially retired.
Yeah, beautiful. So let's talk about how people can access their superannuation, Tom. There's a couple of different options available to them.
Yes, so effectively, so what we're talking about when we're talking about access previously is how we can access it as a lump sum. So that's where you can take what you want when you want once you've met that condition of release. Generally speaking, though, obviously people find it difficult to budget, maybe taking a lump sum now and again. So what people generally look at is what we call an income stream. So that's where you become your own employer. The great thing is you can pay yourself what you want when you want, okay? So you can take a fortnightly payment, a monthly payment, you can take an annual payment, and effectively you can change those payments. If you do start an income stream, there are rules and regulations depending upon if you're still working or if you're retired. So the first kind of income stream which Bill touched upon was what we call a transition to retirement pension. So transition to retirement pension is where you've met your preservation age, 58, 59 or 60, and you can convert your super from a superannuation account and transfer it into a transition to retirement pension account and start receiving a regular pension payment. Now, if you're over 60, those pension payments are tax-free. You don't have to put them in a tax return, okay? But there is a maximum amount that you can draw down while you're still working, okay? So if you're over 60 and you're still working more than that 10 hours a week and you haven't left an employer, then you can only draw down 10% of the account balance each financial year. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's a number of reasons why we look at it when we're planning. Number one, well, that's a tax-free source of income. Now, that can help you if you are transitioning to retirement and say you've gone from full-time down to 3 days, but you still want your full-time salary, it can top up the 3 days a week that you're working. So you've still got the income that you want to live. The second way that you can look at it is say, okay, well, we're still working full-time, but we want a salary sacrifice. So we want a salary sacrifice into super to reduce our tax, but doing that means we've got less take-home pay from working, but we still need our pay from working to live. So that's where we can top up the income from the reduced income from salary sacrificing to make sure that, well, you've still got the same level of income coming in, but you're reducing your tax bill and effectively building up your wealth quicker, okay? And then the third reason why you might use it is something like paying down debt quicker, Bill. So often clients have a mortgage going into their 60s just purely because of the cost of property nowadays, and they want to be debt-free by the time they're retired. So it is one way that you can use your super to help reduce your debt quicker if that's one of your main goals. So really anybody between 60 and 65 who's still working, definitely have a look at this strategy because it can be quite a good strategy to help meet goals and objectives going into retirement. Once you turn 65 or you'll retire, then effectively that transition to retirement pension becomes an allocated pension. It's just a change of name. The two differences are now that there's no maximum pension payment that you can take. You can take what you want, okay? I should have mentioned there is a minimum pension payment that you have to take. And currently, if you're under 65, that's 2%, and it's going to be 2% going into next financial year as well. And if you're 65 to 75, it's 2.5%. So there is a minimum pension payment that you have to take from that pension account. The other great thing, though, of having an allocated pension is that the interest that you earn on that money in an allocated pension, you pay no tax, or the super fund pays no tax on the interest that you earn. Having money sitting in super or a transition to retirement account, you don't actually see this because the super fund pays the tax for you, but they actually have to pay up to 15% tax on the interest that you earn on your money. So we had a question earlier, Bill, about, well, should I leave my money just sitting in super and not access it? Well, actually looking at an allocated pension might be beneficial because purely of this tax benefit that you get from the interest that you earn. So whenever you look at a super fund's website, they always publish two lots of returns. One's for the super fund and transition to retirement pension, which takes into account the tax they have to pay. And then they publish the allocated pension returns. And for exactly the same investment option, you can compare them, generally speaking, the allocated pension returns are about a 1% better return over the long term, purely because of that tax difference. So definitely thinking about, okay, using the income streams to your benefits is from the age of 60 and 65, something to think about, Bill.
And the other thing that you mentioned, because there's no limits on what you can access from an allocated pension perspective post-retirement or 65, should you need that little bit of extra kick for a new car or some other item, you can access lump sum withdrawals through your pension account as well. Now, a couple of other questions in terms of, so we talk about substantially retired. The question, Tom, is, does that 10 hours per week, is it based on the dollar earnings for each hour, or is it any particular hourly rate? Are there limitations in that, or is it just straight up 10 hours?
Yep, it's just straight up 10 hours, Bill. So there's effectively whatever hourly rate you're getting paid, you could be getting paid $1,000 an hour. Okay, so really all the government say is that you're substantially retired if you're working 10 hours a week or less. That's what they classify as substantially retired. Just remember, you have to be at least your preservation age, so 58, 59 or 60 for most people, to access your super. Okay.
I'm not sure what sort of job you're doing with earning $1,000 an hour, Tom. I'm sure it's not legal. And one last question before we move on. If you retire and then a year later decide to rejoin the workforce part-time or in any way, shape or form, Tom, there's no recourse to that. There's no issues whatsoever. There's no tax implications or anything. No,
generally speaking, look, if you're over 60 and you retire and you go back to full-time work, doesn't matter. If you're under 60, so if you're 58 or 59 and you say that you're retiring, the declaration says that it's your intention not to work more than 10 hours a week again. Okay. So if you end up going back to work for whatever reason, because of a change of circumstances, etc., as long as you can honestly sign the declaration at the time of 58 or 59 to access your super at that age if you can, to say, well, I don't intend to go back to work more than 10 hours a week. Obviously, if you sign that declaration and then go back to work on the Monday the following week, the tax office might have the questions. It's a bit of a grey area, but it's really about your intention if you're accessing super. And it's only at 58 or 59 is really that issue.
And really, that's the same with any statutory declaration that you're signing as the justice of the peace. It's, yeah, just be honest. Now, we get into some more nitty gritty in terms of age pension. So the next part of our presentation is in relation to the age pension and what that looks like. Starting, Tom, with the eligibility criteria.
Yes, yeah. So I'm just a bit conscious of time, Bill. So I'll try and cover this as succinct as possible.
There's always a first time, Tom.
So age pension. So the age pension age, so obviously you've got to meet your age pension age. So we've got a slide coming up to say, well, what is your age pension age? Then what the government do is they look at your assets and your income. So they do two tests, and depending upon the outcomes of those tests will depend upon how much you will get paid once you reach your age pension age. Now, my mother-in-law, she's 68 now, but when she did plan to retire, her birthday was 1954. She thought, well, I can retire at 65. No. If you're born in 1954, or February 1954, her retirement age was actually 66. So it's just to remember that, yes, you can access your super from age 60 tax-free, but unless you reach your age pension age, and for most of us, that's going to be 67. There was talk about putting it up to 70. It's not been legislated, so it's still 67. That you've got to be fully self-funded retiree up until 67 before the age pension is going to even be looked at. Okay, but once you reach your age pension age, that's when the government do these tests. So the first test that they do is called the asset test. Now, you might not be aware, but basically they look at all your assets. And if you're a member of a couple, they look at your assets. The one asset that they don't look at as a single person is your own home. So they count everything else: money in super, money in the bank, any shares, even your car and your contents. They add it all up. And if that is less than 270,000 roughly, then you get the full age pension, which is about $18,000 a year. For every $1,000 that you've got above that threshold as a homeowner, okay, they start reducing the age pension that you get, all the way up to, if you've got nearly $600,000 now as a single homeowner, then, and if you've got assets above that, well, there's no pension entitlement. So effectively, if you've got $599,000 worth of assets at the government accounting, then you're getting about $1 worth of age pension, but you're getting also that important pension card, which is what a lot of people want for the benefits, okay? As a non-homeowner, they do give you a slightly higher threshold because obviously you don't have a house, which they're not counting, okay? Now, as a couple, they do exactly the same thing. They just give you a bit of a higher threshold as a couple. Again, they don't include the home. They include everything else apart from money in superannuation for a member of a couple that's under age pension age. So this is where, especially if you're a member of a couple, you need to start thinking about planning, okay, if there's an age gap between you and there's a spouse older who's going to reach age pension age first, that you need to see how you structure your assets, because any that's in superannuation for the younger spouse doesn't count towards this test. So it's a very common strategy that we look at as financial planners, is all around, well, how do we, I guess, shelter assets for this asset test? It's been around for a long time. The government are aware of this as a strategy, but effectively the younger spouse could have $1 million in their super, and while they're under age pension age, if all the other assets that are counted are only 400,000, well, then that older spouse is getting the full age pension as a couple. So again, thinking how you plan going into retirement to potentially maximize any Centrelink benefits is going to be key around this asset test. So again, if you've got over $900,000 in assets as a couple, that's where you don't get the pension, any pension to top it up. But what you've got to think about is, over time, you might be above the threshold, and that your assets, because you're having to use them to live life, will come below the threshold. So for about 70% of Australians retiring today, the age pension will form part of their retirement plan in some way or another to help with how long their money is going to last in retirement. So that's...
Tom, I was going to say...
Yeah, go on, Bill.
Sorry, mate. I was just going to suggest one thing there. When you talk about the potential for someone to move assets, for want of a better term, between their account and their younger spouse to take advantage of that situation, it's not necessarily something you can do at the drop of a hat. So
yes, exactly.
That's a strategy that will come into play. It's about engaging early so that you can actually achieve that strategy as well. So engaging with a financial planner and putting that plan in place as soon as is practicable.
Very good point, Bill, because you're right, because there's limits in terms of how much you can move between accounts. So definitely earlier the planning. And I guess the bigger the age gap, the more benefits that you can get from Centrelink in terms of that kind of asset sheltering. So we look at these sorts of things and plan for them all the time. So that's the asset test. So they apply that and they calculate that. Yes, Bill, you've got a question?
There is a question that's come through.
Yeah.
So the question is around superannuation, and does it determine whether or not you get the age pension? So I think it might be worthwhile touching base on how superannuation forms into both the income and the assets test, just for clarity's sake.
Yeah. So effectively, any money that you have in superannuation or an account-based pension, okay, and you're over age pension age, that will count towards this asset test. So if you have $500,000 in super, that $500,000 will count towards the assets test if you're over age pension age. If you're under age pension age and you have money in superannuation, and I should have pointed out, Bill, that it's superannuation only. If you have money in an account-based pension and you're under age pension age, it will still count towards the asset test. The only assets that don't count towards the asset test are your own home and money in superannuation phase for anybody under age pension age. Okay.
Thank you.
So those are the two assets that don't count. Basically, the government want to look at everything else. If you've got a Rembrandt on the wall, they want to know. Okay. So, because effectively they say, well, you could use that to fund your retirement. So that's what they look at. So they do that assets test. So that's one test they do. Then they do an income test. Okay. Now, for most people, if they're working, then the employment income that they get counts towards this test. So this is what you might be over age pension age, okay, but still working full time. And that's why you're precluded from getting any age pension, is because if you're earning as a single person more than $56,000 gross, so that's a gross salary a year, or if you're a member of a couple and anybody in the couple is earning over $85,000 roughly, then that counts towards the income test. Once you stop work, obviously though, that's a income, a large income that's gone. Then what do the government count as income? So if you have any rentals, they count the net rental income coming in. But the main other income that the government count is something called deemed income. So what deemed income is they look at all your financial assets. So financial assets, again, money in super if you're over age pension age, money in an account-based pension, money in the bank, value of shares. So they add up all that total, and they use a formula called a deeming formula to say, okay, well, this is how much we expect you to earn from that asset. So at the moment, because interest rates are so low, the deeming rate is actually, I think it's 2.25%. I don't think they've put it up yet. So what they do is they add up all the financial assets. You got $1 million. They times it by 2.25%. So they're assuming you get $22,500 a year from that asset. Okay. They don't care what income you get. If you take more than that from your pension, if you get more in dividends from that, if you get more in bank interest from that, which you're not going to, but if you do, they don't care. They just look at this formula. Okay. And then again, if you're in the purple zone, if your income is less than 8,000 a year as a couple, or just under 5,000 as a single, you get the full age pension, all the way up to $85,000 as a couple, $56,000 as a single. Quick kind of point here, Bill, that I often see clients where they think just because they're working means they can't apply for the age pension. Not true. You can still be working, but if your income is below these thresholds, there still might be a part age pension that you can be entitled to. So don't just assume because you're working that you might not be entitled to something. It's always good to have a look, okay?
Yep.
So the government, they apply these two tests separately. They go, okay, under the assets test, how much are you eligible for? Under the income test, how much are you eligible for? And then they're so kind that they pay you the lower amount of those two. So effectively, you might be eligible under the income test for an age pension, but under the asset test, it wipes you. So they'll pay you zero, or vice versa, okay? And it's important as well to, I guess, keep Centrelink updated with your situation to make sure that they do have the correct information, because Centrelink don't know everything, okay?
But just for clarity's sake, because we've had a couple of questions come through.
Yeah.
If there is a couple and one is above age pension age and the other is not, but the younger spouse continues to work,
yeah,
if their income, if their younger spouse's income tips them over any of these thresholds, it absolutely impacts or excludes them from being able to receive the age pension. Correct.
That's right. Yeah. So effectively, they will always look at you as a couple. Okay. And they will always take into account the income coming into the household as a couple. So the government say, well, your partner's working full time, they can support you. Hence, there's no age pension. So people have to remember, I guess, we made the decision 30 years ago, and we made the choice of, okay, how are we going to fund the age pension? And we said it's a means tested benefit, like unemployment benefit, like disability support benefit. The age pension is a means tested benefit to say, well, if you don't have the income or assets to support yourself, the government will help you out. Okay. You could have gone down the road of the UK, New Zealand, America, where it's a national insurance scheme, everybody pays into a pot, then everybody's guaranteed an age pension. Pros and cons for both. In my opinion, I think the superannuation system, I'm biased, Bill, I work in super, but there you go. The superannuation system that was designed to give people the dignity of having money in retirement, and that the government will always be there as a safety net if you didn't have the savings. So that's the whole point of increasing the contribution rate to 12%, is to make sure that people do have, it'll be the norm in 30 years time, Bill, to retire with $1 million. So we'll get there, and that will put retirees in a lot better position than having to purely rely on what a government will give you. Because as you can see from these figures, Bill, it's not a lot.
No, I've lived on less during my university days, but as by no means do I want to go back there. Just bear with us, people. I know we are going to go a little bit over, but I'll try and contain myself and Tom as we progress through these. But Tom, just quickly, these are the figures that someone receiving the full age pension would receive each year. But if you're a couple living apart, it doesn't necessarily mean you get the couple age pension, correct?
Yeah, so if there's one of you that's over age pension age, one of you under, the one over age pension age, the maximum that they can get is that $19,000 a year. As a single person, you can get up to 25.5 a year. So they'll pay you half the couple rate, they don't pay you the single rate.
Very cheap of them. Now, some other benefits to potentially, if you aren't eligible for the age pension, something that isn't means tested is the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card.
Yeah, so this
is means tested, but
yeah, it's not asset tested, Bill. So, so what the thing going back to the asset and income test for most people who are retired, the written 80% of people, 90% of people, the reason why they don't get an age pension is because they've got too many assets. Okay, so what the government have said is, okay, well, we'll get rid of the asset test for this health card. Now, the health card is what a lot of people do want, is they want the health benefits of the bulk bill doctors, cheaper medicines. And again, so they don't look at the assets, but they do look at the income. So they do that deeming test, okay? But the thresholds are actually slightly higher. That's number one. And because deeming rates are very low, that I had a couple today actually who came in and they've got they got nearly $2 million between them as a couple. So they're not eligible for the age pension. But I did point out to them, well, you can apply for the health card because they're under the threshold. So I think 97% of Australians will actually be eligible for this card, which is a good benefit to have.
Definitely. Also worthwhile checking in with your local, state or territory government. If you meet certain conditions, you may be eligible for lower rates and bills or discounts on public transport as well. So that's worthwhile investigating when you get the opportunity. Now, there's also more recently been some changes that have been made to superannuation, which are mostly beneficial to yourselves as members. So for those of you that have a pension account, you'll know that the government has extended the 50% reduction of the minimum drawdown amounts. So where you have to take a minimum from your pension account each year, which generally starts at 4%, the government has said that you can now reduce that by 50%. And they essentially want to ensure that you're not having to take money out of your superannuation or your pension account in difficult markets. So that's worthwhile thinking. Now, for those people that are affected, possibly not too many people on this presentation, but superannuation guarantee, you certainly needed to use to earn $450 per month before you were eligible for any contribution. But from 1 July, what's going to happen is that you'll be earning superannuation on your very first dollar earned. So that's a good outcome as well. From 1 July this year, the superannuation guarantee is going from 10% to 10.5% for all employees. So you should see that shift within the contributions as well. Excuse me. One of the probably the biggest and most beneficial for people, Tom, that I know you work with, if you're currently aged between 65 and 74 for this current financial year, for you to contribute voluntarily to your account, you need to meet what's called the work test, where you work 40 hours within 30 consecutive days. From 1 July, though, they're removing the need to meet the work test. So regardless of your circumstances, you would be able to put money into superannuation based on the existing caps based on.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually a really good change. So again, if you've been retired for many years, it's definitely something to look at your situation from the 1st of July. Now, there was a question about if you pass away. So we've finally come to your question, Coral. When you pass away, do your beneficiaries have to pay tax on any super that they receive? So it depends upon the components of your superannuation. So superannuation is made up of two components, the taxable component and the tax-free component, okay? The taxable component is basically money that's built up over your working life from what we call those concessional contributions. The tax-free component is effectively money that you've put in yourself from your own bank account. Now, the tax-free component will always go tax-free to any beneficiaries. The taxable component only goes tax-free to yourself, a spouse, or a tax dependent. If it goes to adult children, okay, so that's effectively when super passes to adult children from your super fund, that's where there could be potentially that 17% tax that is deducted from that component, okay, before the super fund pays the beneficiaries. So the main kind of people that are affected are the adult children. Two things. Number one, you may spend all your super. Kids never get it. That's most people's goal. It's definitely my goal. And then two, that effectively that it's not benefiting you, it's benefiting the kids. Okay. So, but if it is a concern, then there are strategies that we look through estate planning. And this is where the estate planning side of things come in, Bill, where we can look at how we increase that tax-free component of your super through these strategies. So if anything did happen, that, well, most of the super gets passed tax-free to the estate or the adult children. So, and the thing is, from the 1st of July, these sorts of strategies are just opening up more and more to people all the way up to age 75. Okay.
My kids are basically driving me insane right now. They're pre-teens, so unless they turn things around, it's not a chance in hell I'll be doing anything of the sort for them. They could pay that tax. So you've kind of touched base on estate planning to a degree, but the options, I suppose, are available to members. If I talk about the superannuation account to begin with, it's important that you nominate a beneficiary. So let your superannuation fund know where you would like the monies to go to, and you do have two options in that space. A non-binding beneficiary nomination is you providing guidance to the fund as to where you'd like the monies to go to, but the fund does still have the obligation to confirm and send that money to the most appropriate person under the legislation. If you wanted to do a binding nomination, as long as you nominate someone eligible under the legislation, then the superannuation fund must pay as per your wishes. Okay, so if you nominate a spouse, children of any age, someone that's financially dependent upon you, or someone that you're in an interdependent relationship with, they would be considered people that you could leave it as a binding nomination. Another person that you can leave a binding nomination to is your estate or your will. So it's important, if you've got a will in place, that you distribute your superannuation benefits as per your wishes, but you can do a binding nomination with your superannuation fund to ensure that it gets paid across to your will as well. And Tom, I don't know what you've had to do with in regards to powers of attorney, but they're an important part of estate planning as well.
Yeah, definitely. You speak to any solicitor, they'll always say, as soon as you turn 18, get a will, powers of attorney, binding nomination on your estate, on your super. So I don't know many 18-year-olds that do it, but it took me a while as well. But it is important to have all those documents in place just to make sure that your assets are passing to who you want them to pass to.
And not only that, it could be a medical as well. So, you give them instructions as to what you want to happen in certain circumstances. Mentioned my children a little bit before. I won't tell them that I might not be saving them any tax, and they might leave the plug in for a little bit longer, so to speak. Aged care is obviously very, very complex, Tom. But as a financial planner, qualified, you can help people, I guess, delve through this process, which is very, very complicated.
Yeah, it is a complicated area, as you say, Bill. So I actually have a special accreditation in aged care. It is a very specific topic. Usually for clients that come to me saying, look, I've got to put mum into aged care or dad into aged care. Can you help me? This is where we can help with the financial side of things. So that's all around how do you fund it? How do we pay any deposits for a room? And we go through all some different scenarios. We do a separate seminar on this, Bill. I'm not too sure when the next one is coming up, but if that is something in your life, I guess, that is going on, or you want to have some more information about that, please look out for the aged care seminars, because again, we do more than just super. That's the main thing to remember. We help our members in lots of different ways.
We've got a few questions coming through. We will absolutely answer those before we let you all go this evening. But just to give you an idea of how you can get some more information, there are a few different options available to you. And we absolutely want to help you engage with your superannuation and make some choices. So it's about giving you the information to make an informed choice. If you just like some general information, then you can call through to our contact centre, or if you see myself or one of the other RMs on site, please approach us and ask any questions that you might have. We can handle any general superannuation or pension questions. We can assist you with any forms. We can detail legislation for you, and certainly get you a great starting point to be able to start making decisions. If we can't help you, you have the option, as a part of your membership fee, you have access to what's referred to as limited advice. So where you want relatively simple advice, whether that be on your contribution strategy, your investment options, or your insurance needs, then you can have a phone conversation with one of our qualified financial advisors over the phone at no additional cost. I exclude a transition to retirement from that, just simply because there is a small fee, Tom, which is $385 for transition to retirement advice. Is it $385?
Yeah, I think so, Bill. Yeah, basically, it's a bit more complicated, so they have to cover the costs of
definitely
that advice to the member.
Again, so if you would like to have either of those options or a comprehensive advice appointment, you'll actually receive a notice following our presentation this evening, probably tomorrow, where you can nominate that you'd actually like a little bit further information, and someone will reach out to you to make sure that you get that information for you. Now, I guess the big bang, the value for money is going to comprehensive advice, where someone like Tom or one of our other financial planners can look at your holistic situation, and provide some value. So, Tom, what would be the benefits of someone coming to someone like yourself as a fully comprehensive advisor?
Yeah, I guess, Bill, we specialise in retirement planning. That's what we do day to day. So effectively, especially if you're a member of a couple as well, it's very important to plan as part of a couple. And doing it early, as you said, just puts you in a better position. So we look at your whole situation. So the way that it works, if you haven't seen us before, you come in, you have a chat, you get an initial appointment at no extra cost, and effectively we discuss your situation. We point out things that you might not be aware of. Can we help? If we can help, we'll explain how we can help and the reasons why. Ultimately, though, if we do any advice, we always have to charge a fee for that. So we will give you a quote in the meeting to go, okay, well, to discuss all these sorts of topics and get my professional opinion, it's going to cost X amount. The cost of the advice is always a fixed cost. We've always worked on what we call a fixed cost basis. So there's no ongoing costs. We don't get any commissions. We don't get any ongoing payments for anything that we do. It's basically the cost for the time it takes to put the advice together, go through the advice, and implement the advice. And look, if we can't help you, we'll say so. Okay, we're here to help the members. We're not here to generate fees or anything like that. But ultimately, if we do work for an individual member or a couple, we have to charge that individual member for that time. Okay, but all I would say is come in, have that chat, and especially if you turn 60 or you're between 60 and 65, turn 65 or turning age, pension age, those are really the key times you need to be looking at everything, because that's when you can maximize any benefits that you might be missing out on.
Perfect. Some other options in terms of where you can get some information. If you haven't already organised access to our member portal, this is what it looks like. But you can certainly do a lot of things on there. So whether or not you wanted to make a contribution, those contribution details on there, you can obviously manage and view your balance and balance history. Your investment options will be listed on there and what your returns are. There's actually a really good insurance calculator. So if you want to investigate your needs in that space, that's another opportunity as well. If you want to do a non-binding beneficiary nomination, that is available to do online. And you can actually transact on there as well. So if you need to update your details, change that investment option, and if you want to make withdrawals and you're eligible, that's also something that you can take advantage of through our member portal. Some things we would love all of you to do right now. I'm starting to slip up a bit. So log into the member portal or register if you haven't already and have a bit of a snoop through there to see what information is available to you. Come and have a chat to your local RM. So we're based in pretty much all of the major cities and some regional centres, but we also do travel. So you'll see us on site from time to time at your workplaces. Talk to the financial advice team. So I've just had confirmation that the survey will be coming out tonight. So strike while the iron is hot. If you need some more information, whether that be general information, limited advice, or having a chat with someone like Tom, take advantage of that and get back to us, and we'll reach out to you as soon as we possibly can. You can contact us by calling us on 1300 658 776 and have a chat to our award-winning contact centre staff. You can look at our website, and there's some opportunities there for you to engage with us as well. If you have a general query or you just want to send some information through, fundoffice@catholicsuper.com.au. So, Tom, we've got a few questions that have come through. One of the questions is, if you wish to change your investment option, will a phone call suffice? So I will say that does fit very comfortably into our limited advice offering. So if you were to request limited advice and you just want to speak to what is an appropriate investment option for you, absolutely that will get the job done, and they'll provide you with a written statement of advice to recommend a particular investment option for you. Another one is, if someone's retired at 60 years of age, Tom, can they leave all their super money in the super fund and draw an allocated pension from that and any additional lump sum withdrawals? Not quite.
Yeah, so I guess you just got to remember there's two phases to your money in super. So while you're working, you've got the superannuation phase or accumulation phase. Okay, so that's where money's going in from your employer, from you, etc. If you're wanting to draw a regular payment, you have to transfer what you have in super into an allocated pension. Okay, and that's where the fund will then pay you a regular payment. You can tell them how often you want it. You can't just do weekly now, unfortunately, Bill. We used to allow weekly, but now it's got to be fortnightly, monthly, or I think biannually or annually.
Correct.
Okay. And there's a minimum payment that you have to take. You can take above that minimum payment. And if you ever want to dip into that allocated pension and take a lump sum, you can request the fund just to pay you a lump sum from that allocated pension as well. So very, very flexible, okay? The best way to think about an allocated pension is a bit like a water tank. You've got your balance there. It's being topped up by the interest that you earn, and then you're taking out your payments at the bottom, and then you can also access ad hoc lump sums from that water tank whenever you want. Obviously, remember, the more you take, the quicker it goes.
Beautiful. Someone's also asked how to roll their funds from another fund into Australian Catholic Super. There are a couple of different options. Before you decide to do that, it's worthwhile considering, Tom, whether or not you have any insurances with that other fund, because if you close that other account by transferring it across, those insurances will become null and void. So if you do need insurances, and someone like myself, I mentioned I was type 1 diabetic, my ability to increase my insurances is virtually non-existent. So it's very topical for myself and others that you might be best placed to keep insurances where they exist, depending upon your overall needs. But if that isn't you and you do want to organise to transfer your funds across, you've got a few different options. Probably the easiest one nowadays, if you use MyGov, by going into your MyGov account and then into the Australian Taxation Office section, you'll see one of the options there is to manage your super. And within there, you can simply click on one of your superannuation funds and request it to be transferred across to your other nominated fund. Wonderfully, it also has the last reported balance for each of your superannuation funds in there, and certainly whether or not you have any active insurances with those funds. So that's a good starting point. Alternatively, if you log into your online portal with us, there's an option there to organise the transfer of funds across. We can help you with that. If you're old school and you'd actually like to do a form and put those details and send that in to us, we could also pick up that challenge for you, organise those monies to come across, and let you know once the funds have been received. Now, the last question I have, someone had heard that we're merging, and is this correct? It absolutely is. You should have received, if you're a member of our fund, you should have received confirmation that Australian Catholic Super and UniSuper have been exploring a merger for some time now, since December last year. Most recently, we collectively signed a heads of agreement. So essentially the second part of a three-part process to confirm that merger. So we've gone through the due diligence process where we've looked at their fund and what they do, and they've looked at ours. And then we've progressed beyond that to looking at the opportunity to transition members across from Australian Catholic Super to UniSuper. If you're interested in some further information as that does become available and timelines and everything firm up, we'll definitely be communicating with you in more detail in the future. But if you'd like to learn anything about UniSuper, if you just go onto their website, there's a lot of synergy between their fund and ours. And we certainly feel, and the board obviously feels, that this merger is absolutely in members' best interest, and that UniSuper will do a very, very good job of looking up to your retirement savings. So essentially, stay tuned, but you absolutely heard right. We are looking to merge with UniSuper, and we expect that to happen by the end of this year. That appears to be all of the questions that we've received, Tom. So if there's no additional questions coming through, I'd like to say thank you to everybody that has attended this evening. I hope you got the information that you did need. When that survey comes out, if you need some further help and guidance, please do reach out in one way, shape or form, and we'll absolutely reach out to you. Make sure that your questions have been answered and any additional information is sent your way to help you on this particular journey. But thank you so much for coming. I know it's a little bit later than we intended, but it's Tom's fault.
Thanks, Bill. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.